When we think about ancient Greece, most of us picture philosophers in pristine white robes debating under olive trees, beautiful marble buildings gleaming in the sun, and Olympic athletes competing for glory. What a golden, civilized paradise, right? Nothing could be further from the truth. For the average person, ancient Greece was a brutal, filthy struggle for survival that usually ended in an early, painful death. Life expectancy, 20 to 35 years at best. And that's if you managed to survive childhood, which about 1/3 of children didn't. Think you'd be the exception? Let's drop you into ancient Greece and see how long you'd last. So, yeah, if these stories work for you, subscribe. And I'm curious, what time is it where you are? Comment below. Last week, someone from Canada said they listened during lunch breaks. Not judging, just wasn't expecting that. Okay, tonight it's ancient Greece. But wait, are you comfortable? No, really, check. Pillows, blankets, the whole deal. Where we're going, you'll want to be settled. So congratulations, you just woke up in Athens, 430 BCE, the golden age of Pericles. Your eyes open to unfamiliar surroundings, a small windowless room with mud brick walls. The air feels thick, acrid with smoke from last night's cooking fire that never fully ventilated through the small hole in the roof. Your lungs burn slightly with each breath, your eyes water. Everyone around you seems used to this. They've been breathing smoke their entire lives. You're lying on a wooden frame with some rope webbing digging into your back. If you're lucky, there's a thin straw mattress on top. If not, just straw on a dirt floor. Your back already aches and the day hasn't even begun. Forget memory foam or even basic springs. Those luxuries are 2,400 years in the future, unlike your comfy bed right now, which cradles your body perfectly. Zeno, get up, or there'll be no water left. A woman's voice cuts through your confusion. Apparently, your name is Zeno now, foreigner. Appropriate. The woman, Lydia, stands in the doorway. You've been taken in as a household servant after being found wandering with no identity or connections. A dangerous position in ancient Greece. Lydia, a potter's wife, decided you might be useful rather than leaving you to starve. Not exactly charity. She expects work in return. The well will be crowded soon, she says, thrusting a heavy clay amphora into your hands. Fill this completely and don't drop it. It's worth more than you are. You stagger to your feet, disoriented but grateful to have shelter and potential protection. The empty amphora alone weighs about 15 pounds. When filled with water, it'll be close to 50. No modern plumbing here. Water must be carried from public fountains or wells. Outside, dawn barely breaks over the cramped, chaotic streets of Athens. The city is enclosed by massive walls, built for protection against Spartan invaders, but they also trap the stench of 300,000 people living without sewage systems. The smell hits you immediately. Human waste, rotting food, unwashed bodies, smoke and animals. Your stomach lurches. People are already moving through the narrow, unpaved streets. Women carrying water jugs like yours, craftsmen setting up workshops, slaves running errands for their masters. A man relieves himself against a wall without shame or privacy. A woman empties a chamber pot from a second-story window with only a quick shout of warning. The waste splashes near your feet and you jump back. First time in Athens, an old man with a twisted back grins at you, his teeth mostly gone. You get used to the smell, or you die. Either way, problem solved. He cackles and shuffles away. His hunched posture isn't from age alone. He mentions having worked in the silver mines south of the city. Many who survive that brutal labour carry physical reminders for life. You follow a group of women to the nearest public fountain. The line is already long. While waiting, you notice how worn everyone looks. Even young people have weathered skin, calloused hands, and postures shaped by hard labour. Many have visible health issues, limps, rashes, chronic coughs. The children look small for their ages, many with distended bellies suggesting parasitic infections. A well-dressed woman with 2 female slaves passes by. The contrast is immediate. Her skin is clearer, her clothing clean and intact. She doesn't carry her own water. Social hierarchy is physically visible in the bodies of Athenians. When your turn comes, you struggle with the heavy amphora. The water looks questionable, slightly cloudy with a faint smell, but everyone drinks it. Athens has a relatively advanced water system for the time, with terracotta pipes bringing water from outside sources, but contamination is constant. No filtration, no chlorination, nothing to kill the bacteria, parasites and other pathogens swimming in what looks like clear water. "You're not from here," says a young woman named Thea, helping you position the amphora to fill efficiently. "Your accent is strange. From one of the colonies?" You mumble something non-committal, and she seems to accept that you're just from somewhere distant. She shows you a faster way to fill the jug and explains which fountains have the cleanest water. "This one's decent. Never drink from the one near the tannery, though," she warns. "My cousin did once. Fever took her in 3 days. Skin turned yellow, vomiting black bile. The physician blamed bad humours in her blood, but it was the water. Everyone knows it." This casual mention of death, unexpected, rapid, and from something as simple as drinking from the wrong fountain, perfectly captures the precariousness of life here. Death isn't an abstract concept that happens to the elderly in hospitals. It's an everyday companion that takes people of all ages, suddenly and often inexplicably. You thank Thea and hoist the now-filled amphora. The weight is shocking. Your arms strain immediately. The women around you, even girls as young as 8 or 9, manage similar loads with practiced ease. Their arm muscles are visibly defined from years of this daily labor. Carrying the water back through the narrow streets becomes your first survival challenge. The unpaved roads are uneven, with random stones, animal waste and garbage creating obstacles. One wrong step, one slip could mean a broken amphora and a beating from Lydia's husband. Or worse, a twisted ankle or broken bone, injuries that could be fatal in a world without proper medical care. You make it back to the potter's house, arms shaking with effort. Lydia nods curtly, then immediately puts you to work grinding barley for the morning meal. The grain is coarse, nothing like the refined flour of modern times. The grinding stones are heavy, the motion repetitive and jarring on your wrists and shoulders. "Grind it finer," Lydia instructs. "Bad teeth already took 2 of my children. The rest won't suffer from gritty bread." Another casual reference to child mortality that freezes you momentarily. In your time, the death of a child is an extraordinary tragedy. Here, it's a normal, expected part of life. Lydia has had 7 children. 4 are still alive. This is considered good fortune. The morning meal is simple. Barley bread dipped in watered wine, a few olives, and a small piece of goat cheese. It's served on rough wooden boards, eaten with fingers. No utensils, no plates as you know them. The bread is dense and chewy, nothing like modern bread, but the hunger from your physical labour makes it taste incredible. As the household eats, you notice a small shrine in the corner with offerings of food and wine. Religion permeates every aspect of life here. The gods are believed to be actively involved in human affairs, capable of bringing fortune or disaster on a whim. Proper worship isn't optional. It's essential survival strategy. After the meal, Lydia's husband Diocles takes you to his pottery workshop attached to the house. He's neither kind nor cruel. You're simply labour to him, a resource to be used efficiently. He shows you how to prepare clay, explaining each step with the assumption you'll remember it all immediately. You'll start with preparing materials, he says. Prove yourself useful and maybe you'll touch the wheel in a year or 2. The work is physically demanding, carrying heavy clay, mixing it with your feet in large vats, removing impurities with your hands. The workshop is hot from the kilns used to fire finished pieces. Ventilation is poor, and you breathe in clay dust that coats your lungs. You notice Diocles and his senior apprentice both have chronic coughs. This work is slowly killing them, but it's also keeping them alive by providing income. Watch for those. Diocles points to a large rat scurrying along the wall. They're everywhere. Bite you while you sleep, they will. Got the fever last year from a bite. Nearly died. Rats, mice, fleas, lice. These aren't occasional pests, but constant companions in ancient Greek life. They're in the food, the bedding, the clothing. They spread disease and contaminate everything. Modern concepts of pest control don't exist. People simply coexist with vermin and suffer the consequences. As you work through the morning, your body struggles with the unaccustomed labour. Your hands blister from the rough clay. Your lower back aches from bending and lifting. Your modern muscles, conditioned perhaps for gym workouts but not sustained physical labour, scream in protest. "Pathetic," mutters the senior apprentice, Alexios, as he passes. "Like a child's arms. You won't last a week." He might be right. Physical weakness isn't just uncomfortable here, it's potentially fatal. Without modern medicine, injuries don't heal properly. Without modern sanitation, wounds easily become infected. Without antibiotics, infections frequently lead to death. And without social safety nets, those who can't work don't eat. Midday brings brief respite as the workshop closes for the hottest hours of the day. This isn't generosity, it's practical necessity. The heat of Greek summer is oppressive, regularly exceeding 100 degrees Celsius, 38 degrees Celsius, without air conditioning, electric fans, or even ice. Heat stroke is a real danger, especially for those doing physical labour. You're sent to the market, agora, with a few small coins to purchase supplies. The agora is the heart of Athenian public life, part marketplace, part political forum, part social centre. It's crowded, noisy, and overwhelming to your modern senses. Vendors shout from every direction, selling everything from food to pottery to clothing. There's no fixed pricing. Every transaction involves haggling. No consumer protection either. Goods are frequently misrepresented, weights and measures manipulated. Caveat emptor isn't just a saying here, it's essential survival knowledge. The food stalls catch your attention as your stomach growls. There's fresh bread, olives, figs, and fish. Meat is rarely seen. It's a luxury most people can't afford regularly. The fish looks questionable in the heat, but protein is protein. With no refrigeration, everything is either freshly caught, preserved through salting or drying, or beginning to rot. While navigating the market, you witness a commotion. A man accused of stealing is being dragged toward the government buildings for trial. Justice in Athens is swift and harsh. Trials typically last no more than a day. Imprisonment isn't a common punishment. Outcomes usually involve fines, exile, or execution. The accused must defend himself without lawyers as we understand them. You purchase the supplies Diocles requested and hurry back, wary of becoming lost in the maze-like streets. Athens has no street signs, no house numbers, no maps available to newcomers. Navigation happens by landmark and memory, a cognitive challenge for your modern brain accustomed to GPS and clearly marked roads. Returning to the workshop, you resume your labours under the critical eye of Alexios, who seems determined to find fault with everything you do. He's competing for limited resources. Diocles can only support so many apprentices, and your presence threatens Alexios's position. As you work, you notice a group of men in the street engaged in animated discussion about politics. They're citizens, the elite minority who can participate in democracy. To be a citizen, one must be male, born to Athenian parents, and have completed military training. Everyone else, women, slaves, resident foreigners, metics, has no political rights. These citizens are preparing to attend the assembly where they'll vote on matters affecting the city. Democracy exists, but in a form that would shock modern sensibilities, direct rather than representative, limited to a small percentage of the population and operating without many of the checks and balances modern systems employ. The men's conversation focuses on the ongoing war with Sparta. The Peloponnesian War has been raging for years, disrupting trade, draining resources, and killing young men by the thousands. Athens is particularly vulnerable because it depends on imported grain. If the supply lines are cut, starvation follows. War is a constant feature of Greek life. Between 700 and 450 BCE, there were only 10 years of complete peace among the Greek city-states. For men of fighting age, military service is mandatory. The hoplite phalanx, the main Greek military formation, requires intensive training and expensive equipment. If you're called to serve, you'll need to provide your own armor and weapons, which cost roughly half a year's wages for an average worker. As the afternoon progresses, you feel something you'd almost forgotten, a sense of accomplishment. You've survived your first morning in ancient Greece. You've secured basic necessities, shelter, water, food, and a potential ongoing source of these things through work. You've begun to map the physical and social landscape around you. But survival here isn't just about making it through a single day. The constant threats, disease from contaminated water, infection from small injuries, violence from crime or war, starvation from crop failure, social ostracism from breaking unwritten rules, create an environment where death is always just one mistake away, and you haven't even made it to noon yet. The midday sun beats down mercilessly as you exit Diocles' pottery workshop. Athens shimmers in the heat, the white limestone buildings almost blinding in the intense Mediterranean light. The streets have emptied somewhat as people seek shelter during the hottest part of the day. Those who remain move slowly, conserving energy, staying in slivers of shade wherever possible. Lydia hands you a small clay cup of watered wine and a piece of barley bread. Eat quickly, she says, then take these pots to Stephanos at the olive oil shop. He'll pay you 3 obols. If he offers 2, remind him of his debt to Diocles. If he gives you less than 3, don't come back. Your first solo errand feels like a test. Can you navigate the city? Can you handle a basic transaction? Can you be trusted with money? Proving your worth is critical. In this society, without social safety nets, your survival depends entirely on your usefulness to others. The pots are packed carefully in a woven basket. They represent days of Diocles' work and are worth far more than you would be if sold as a slave. The weight pulls at your shoulders as you memorize Lydia's directions. 3 streets toward the agora, left at the shrine, to Hermes, right at the public fountain, then straight to the covered market. As you walk, you observe how different social classes experience midday differently. Slaves continue working, obviously. Their comfort isn't a consideration. Poor laborers and craftspeople take minimal rest in whatever shade they can find. The moderately prosperous, like Diocles, retreat to their homes. The wealthy might enjoy a proper midday meal, followed by rest in purpose-built cooler rooms in their larger houses. You pass a group of children playing with a pig's bladder inflated as a ball. Their play seems normal enough, but you notice details that would horrify modern parents. Many have visible, untreated infections, eye inflammations, skin conditions, festering cuts. They're thin, some with the distended bellies that suggest parasitic infections. They play barefoot among street filth. Yet they laugh and argue just like children anywhere, adapted to conditions that are normal to them but shocking to your modern sensibilities. A child of about 7 runs past you, narrowly avoiding collision. "Sorry, stranger," he calls out, not slowing down. His companion, slightly older, gives you an appraising look. "You're new," he states. "Working for the potter?" You nod, surprised at being recognized already. Nikias," he says with the confidence of a child who navigates these streets daily. "That's good work if you don't mind the dust. My father says potter's lungs turn to stone eventually, but you'll eat regularly." Nikias offers to show you a shortcut to the olive oil cellar, and despite some wariness, you follow him. His knowledge of the city is impressive, ducking through narrow alleys, cutting through a small courtyard where he's clearly known, emerging much closer to your destination. Stephanos is fair, but pretends to forget agreements, Nikias advises. "Stand your ground." He grins, revealing several missing teeth, then holds out his hand expectantly. You realize this help isn't free. Having no money of your own, you break off a piece of your barley bread and offer it. Nikias accepts it with a nod, clearly having hoped for a coin, but not surprised by your poverty. "Watch for Lysander and his friends," he warns, before running off. "They take from newcomers, 3 streets that way." He points toward a neighborhood you resolve to avoid. This brief interaction illustrates something vital about survival in ancient Greece. Information is precious currency. Knowing which water is safe, which streets are dangerous, which merchants cheat, which officials can be bribed. This knowledge keeps you alive. Nikias, despite being a child, possesses local intelligence that you lack, making even him more adapted to survival here than you. You find the olive oil shop where Stephanos, a heavy-set man with oil-stained hands, inspects Diocles' pots with exaggerated scrutiny. The negotiation goes exactly as Lydia predicted. He offers 2 obols, you mentioned Diocles' previous service, and reluctantly he hands over 3 small coins. Olive oil is fundamental to Greek life. It's used for cooking, lighting lamps, cleaning bodies, treating leather and medicine. The shop smells richly of it, with large storage vessels, pithoi containing different grades. The highest quality is for food, the lower for industrial uses. Greece produces abundant olives, one of the few crops well suited to its rocky, dry landscape. "You don't look like you'll last," Stephanos comments, eyeing your already sunburned skin and the blisters forming on your hands. "Athens eats foreigners alive, especially during war." The reference to war reminds you of the historical context. You've arrived during the Peloponnesian War between Athens and Sparta, a devastating conflict that will ultimately lead to Athens' defeat. The city is under stress, resources stretched thin, political tensions high. On your return journey, you take a wrong turn and find yourself in an unfamiliar street. The buildings here are larger, better constructed, with decorated entrances. You've wandered into a wealthier area. Before you can correct your route, you're confronted by 3 young men in fine clothing, led by a tall youth with a scar across his cheek. "Look what we found," says the scarred one, presumably Lysander, whom Nikias warned about. "A potter's boy, with coins, I'd wager. His Greek has the refined accent of education." You clutch the 3 obols tightly, knowing their loss would be disastrous. These aristocratic youth aren't motivated by need, but by entertainment. Harassing those of lower status is a common pastime for bored young men from wealthy families. "I've delivered pots for Diocles the potter," you say, trying to project confidence. "His client Stephanos, friend of Pericles, expects me back shortly." The name-dropping is a desperate bluff, but it works better than expected. Lysander hesitates. "Diocles makes those black-figured cups my father collects," says one of the other youths. "My father wouldn't be pleased if his new commission were delayed." The implied threat of parental displeasure and the potential loss of status it represents shifts the dynamic. Lysander shrugs with forced casualness. "Go on then," he says, "but foreigners should know their roots. Stay where you belong next time." You escape without incident, heart pounding. The encounter highlights another survival reality. Social connections matter enormously. Even the implied possibility that harming you might inconvenience someone important was enough protection. Those without such connections are far more vulnerable. Returning to the potter's house, you deliver the money to Lydia, who nods with approval. Your successful completion of this basic task has slightly improved your standing in the household. Such small victories can gradually build security in a world where your survival depends entirely on your social position and usefulness. The afternoon brings a return to labour. The pottery must be decorated before firing, and you're tasked with grinding minerals for pigments: copper for blue-green, iron for red, manganese for black. The work is tedious and the materials toxic. You notice that Alexios, who has worked with these substances for years, has stained fingers and a persistent tremor in his hands. Occupational poisoning is a slow, invisible threat that workers accept as inevitable. "Use this," says a girl of about 12, Diocles' daughter Melina, handing you a cloth to wrap around your face. "It helps with the dust, a little." This small kindness surprises you. Melina explains that her older brother died 2 years ago from the potter's cough, likely silicosis from inhaling clay dust. Her mother now insists on face coverings in the workshop, one of the few concessions to worker safety in an era that has no concept of occupational health. Melina works alongside you, smaller fingers deftly painting designs on finished pottery. Child labour isn't just common, it's expected. Children begin contributing to household work as soon as physically capable, usually around age 5 to 7. By 12, like Melina, they're often fully integrated into the family trade. Childhood as a protected period of play and education exists only for the wealthy, and even then primarily for boys. "I'm faster than Alexios now," Melina says proudly. "Father says I have talent, but when I marry, I'll have to stop." She says this matter-of-factly, already understanding that her future will be defined by her gender regardless of her skills. As she works, Melina explains aspects of daily life you're struggling to understand, the complex social rules, religious observances, and practical matters of survival in Athens. Her perspective as a child who has never known any other reality makes the information more digestible somehow, stripped of adult judgment. "See how I mix the black pigment? Too thick and it flakes in the kiln, too thin and it runs just right and it lasts forever," she demonstrates. "That's how everything is here. There's a balance. Go too far one way or another and you won't survive." Her childish metaphor captures something profound about life in ancient Greece, the narrow margins for error in every aspect of existence. Food must be preserved correctly or it spoils, but preserved too heavily and it becomes inedible. Water is essential but potentially deadly if contaminated. Social connections provide protection but can turn dangerous if politics shift. Religion offers structure but demands costly sacrifices. Every necessity carries corresponding risks. The afternoon wears on, and your modern body struggles with the unaccustomed labour. Your back aches from bending over the grinding stone. Your hands, soft from a lifetime of modern conveniences, have developed painful blisters that threaten to become infected in this pre-antibiotic world. Your head throbs from dehydration and eye strain in the dim workshop light. Melina notices your fatigue. It gets easier, she says, though you're not sure if she's being kind or just practical. Your hands harden after a while. The pain never really goes away, but you stop noticing it so much. This casual acceptance of constant physical discomfort reflects another survival reality. Pain is not an emergency here, but a normal condition of existence. Without effective pain relief beyond wine, willow bark, and opium, all with significant limitations, people simply endure what modern humans would consider unbearable. As evening approaches, work in the pottery finally ends. Your muscles tremble with exhaustion. Modern exercise, even intense workouts, poorly prepares the body for the sustained physical labor that was normal daily life in ancient times. Activities that seem simple, carrying water, grinding grain, kneading clay, become torturous when performed for hours without modern ergonomic tools. Diocles examines the day's work, grunting with minimal approval. You didn't completely waste the materials, he tells you, which apparently constitutes high praise for a first day. Tomorrow you'll start earlier. The clay must be prepared before the heat. The evening meal is similar to breakfast: barley bread, olives, a thin vegetable stew, and watered wine. The monotony of the diet would drive modern palates to rebellion, but here it represents security. Having reliable, if basic, nutrition is the foundation of survival. Many in Athens eat far worse, and some don't eat at all. During the meal, conversation turns to city matters. News travels entirely by word of mouth, creating an oral network that's surprisingly effective but prone to distortion. Diocles has heard rumors of grain shipments delayed by Spartan naval activity. Potential price increases coming. This isn't abstract economic news. It's a direct threat to survival for families living on the edge of subsistence. We should stock what we can afford, Lydia says practically. Remember 2 winters ago. The reference clearly invokes a period of hunger that no one wishes to repeat. After the meal, instead of modern leisure activities, the family continues working. Lydia and Melina spin wool using drop spindles, a task that typically fills every spare female moment. The constant production of thread is necessary for creating clothing, as all textiles are made by hand in a time-consuming process from raw material to finished garment. You'll sleep there, Diocles tells you, pointing to a corner of the main room where a thin pallet has been laid out. Privacy as a concept barely exists in ancient Greek households. The entire family sleeps in shared spaces, perhaps with fabric dividers for married couples. Only the wealthiest homes have multiple rooms designated for different functions. As darkness falls completely, the house grows dim. Oil lamps provide minimal illumination, just enough to complete essential tasks. The light is flickering, yellowed, and creates dramatic shadows that would seem romantic if not for the practical limitations they impose. Reading is difficult, detailed work nearly impossible. Most activity simply stops when natural light fades. Before sleep, the family makes small offerings at the household shrine, a few drops of wine, a morsel of bread. These daily rituals maintain the relationship between the human and divine worlds. The gods are not distant figures, but active presences believed to directly influence daily life. Neglecting proper worship isn't just impious, it's a practical risk that invites misfortune. You observe and imitate these rituals, understanding their importance for both spiritual and social acceptance. Diocles nods with approval at your participation. Religious conformity is another survival strategy in a world where deviation from community norms can lead to dangerous isolation. As you lie on your pallet, body aching from unaccustomed labor, you hear the night sounds of ancient Athens. Dogs bark in the distance, occasional voices or footsteps pass in the street. From somewhere nearby comes the wailing of mourners, another death in the neighborhood, another common occurrence in a world where mortality is a daily companion. Despite your exhaustion, sleep comes fitfully. The pallet is hard, nothing like your comfortable modern mattress. Insects bite persistently, fleas and bedbugs that infest all bedding regardless of social class. The unfamiliar night sounds keep triggering your alert response, and your mind races, processing the day's overwhelming experiences and calculating survival strategies for tomorrow. You've made it through your first day in ancient Greece, establishing a precarious foothold in this household. You have shelter, food, and the beginning of social connections. But survival here isn't just about basic necessities. It's about navigating a complex web of social obligations, physical challenges, and constant threats, both visible and invisible. As you drift towards sleep, you realize that modern humans have forgotten what it means to live with such narrow margins for error. Every decision, from which water to drink to which streets to walk, carries potentially fatal consequences. The physical and psychological resilience required for daily life in ancient Greece makes even the toughest modern existence seem cushioned by comparison. Your last conscious thought before sleep finally claims you is a question. Will your modern knowledge help or hinder your chances of survival in this ancient world? The answer remains uncertain as your first day in Athens comes to an end. The afternoon sun hangs lower in the sky now as you continue your work in Diocles' pottery. Your hands have settled into a rhythm with the grinding stone, though your muscles burn with the unfamiliar exertion. Alexios occasionally glances at your work, his initial hostility softening somewhat as you prove yourself capable of basic tasks without complaint. "Water break," announces Diocles, passing a clay cup that everyone shares. The water tastes slightly metallic and warm, but your thirst overwhelms any hesitation. Diocles watches you carefully. "You've worked in a shop before," he observes. "Not a question." You nod vaguely, letting him believe what he wants. The less you reveal about your true origins, the better. In ancient Greece, being truly foreign, not just from another Greek city-state, but completely outside the Hellenic world, would mark you as a barbarian, someone inherently inferior and potentially dangerous. "The Panathenaic festival approaches," Diocles says, returning to his wheel. "We need 50 more cups before then. The symposia during the festival mean good business." The mention of the Panathenaic festival, Athens' most important religious celebration honoring the goddess Athena, reminds you of the central role religion plays in Greek life. It's not just spiritual, it's economic. Festivals create demand for pottery, food, animals for sacrifice, and various services. They structure the calendar, provide rare holidays from labor, and offer opportunities for social advancement through participation or sponsorship. As work resumes, a well-dressed man enters the pottery. His clothing marks him as wealthy, and everyone's demeanor changes immediately. Straighter postures, more deferential expressions. This is Demosthenes, a member of Athens' elite and an important client. Diocles hurries to greet him with carefully calibrated respect, neither too familiar nor too servile. "The craters for my symposium," Demosthenes states without preamble. "They must be ready in 3 days. Diocles assures him they're progressing well. You continue working but listen carefully to the interaction, learning crucial information about social hierarchy. Demosthenes speaks with the unconscious authority of someone who has never questioned his place at the top. Diocles responds with the careful deference of a skilled craftsman who has status but knows its limits. After Demosthenes leaves, satisfied with what he's seen, Diocles' shoulders relax visibly. His patronage matters, he explains to you. One word from him brings 10 new clients, or ruins us completely. This patron-client relationship exemplifies how social connections determined survival in ancient Greece. Merit and skill matter, but without the right relationships, even the most talented craftsman might starve. For Diocles, maintaining Demosthenes' favour isn't just good business. It's essential protection in a society where the powerful can destroy the vulnerable on a whim. He's on the council this year, Melina whispers to you as you work side by side. He judges citizenship claims too. The mention of citizenship highlights another fundamental aspect of Greek society, the rigid divisions that determine every aspect of life. Athens in particular has a famously restrictive citizenship system, especially after Pericles' citizenship law of 451 BCE, requiring both parents to be Athenian citizens. This creates a relatively small citizen body, only about 10–20% of the total population, with exclusive rights and privileges. As you work through the afternoon, you begin to grasp the complexity of Greek social structure, not just from observation, but from conversations around you. Diocles and his family discuss neighbours, customers, and public figures, inadvertently providing you with a crash course in Athenian society. At the top are citizens, free adult men born to Athenian parents who have completed their military service. Only they can vote, speak in the assembly, own property, and bring cases to court. Their wives and daughters have citizen status but virtually no political rights. Below them are metics, resident foreigners who live and work in Athens but can never become citizens. They pay special taxes, can't own land, and have limited legal protections, though many are successful merchants or craftsmen. Slaves occupy the bottom tier, comprising about a third of Athens' population. Their lives are defined by complete lack of freedom and constant vulnerability. They have no legal rights, no protection from abuse, and no control over their own bodies or labour. You've noticed several household slaves in wealthier homes you've passed, and the silver mines at Lorien, which provide much of Athens' wealth, are worked entirely by slaves in conditions that amount to a death sentence. Your position in this household is ambiguous, not exactly a slave since you weren't purchased, but not free in the modern sense either. You're dependent on Diocles' goodwill, with few options if he decides to cast you out. This precarious status is common in ancient societies, where formal slavery exists alongside various forms of dependency and obligation that constrain freedom without technically being slavery. You, Diocles calls, interrupting your thoughts. Take these finished pieces to the storage room, carefully. You're entrusted with carrying several painted but unfired vases to an adjacent storeroom. The responsibility, though small, indicates a marginal improvement in your status. Trust is earned incrementally here, where a single mistake can cost materials worth days or weeks of labour. In the storeroom, you encounter an elderly man carefully arranging pottery on shelves. This is Timon, Diocles' father, now too frail for most workshop tasks, but still contributing where his aging body allows. His hands, though gnarled with arthritis, move with practiced precision, born from decades at the potter's wheel. New, are you? He asks, eyeing you shrewdly. From where? When you hesitate, he chuckles, running from something. Aren't we all? He doesn't press further, instead showing you the proper way to position the unfired pottery. Stack them wrong, they crack. Simple as that. As you work together, Timon shares something valuable, context for understanding Athens' current situation. Having lived through the Persian Wars in his youth and now witnessing the Peloponnesian War in his old age, his perspective spans Athens' rise and the beginning of its decline. Golden Age, they call it, he snorts. Gold for some, perhaps. The Parthenon rises while common folk struggle for bread. Pericles makes grand speeches about democracy while his policies enrich his supporters. This critical view of Athens' celebrated democratic system reminds you that historical golden ages often shine brightest in retrospect and from a distance. The average Athenian experiences democracy primarily through its demands, military service, jury duty, tax payments, rather than its benefits, which flow disproportionately to the already privileged. The war stretches on, Timon continues, his voice lowering. Farms abandoned as men fight and die, fields burned by Spartans, and now rumours of sickness in the port. Mark my words, hard times approach. The sickness he mentions sends a chill through you, recognizing the historical reference to the plague of Athens that will soon devastate the city, killing an estimated third of the population, including Pericles himself. The knowledge feels like a burden. These people around you, going about their daily lives, have no idea what's coming. When you return to the main workshop, tension hangs in the air. A disagreement has erupted between Diocles and Alexios over a design error that wasted expensive pigment. The conflict reveals the economic pressures that shape daily life. Materials are costly, margins thin, and mistakes potentially ruinous for a business operating with minimal reserves. 3 days' wages wasted, Diocles gestures angrily at the spoiled pottery. The design was unclear, Alexios defends himself, though his posture remains deferential even in disagreement. The argument ends abruptly when a woman enters the workshop. Her clothing marks her as a neighbour rather than a customer, and her expression is urgent. "Soldiers returning!" she announces without preamble. "From Potidea. Wounded. They're saying it went badly." The news lands like a physical blow. Potidea, a city in northern Greece, has been under Athenian siege during the early phase of the Peloponnesian War. A setback there represents not just military failure but potentially personal tragedy for families with men serving in the campaign. "Which units?" Lydia demands, emerging from the house, her face tight with concern. Her brother, you've learned, is among the forces at Potidea. "Don't know yet," the neighbour admits. "They're bringing them through the Dippolon gate now." The workshop empties immediately, work abandoned without hesitation. Even daily labour, so essential for survival, becomes secondary when war touches personal lives. You follow the family through streets suddenly alive with anxious energy as people flow toward the city's main gate to meet the returning soldiers. The scene at the Dippolon gate is chaotic and heart-rending. Wounded men are carried on makeshift stretchers or supported by comrades. Some walk under their own power but bear visible injuries, bandaged limbs, blood-soaked garments, the vacant stare of psychological trauma. Family members push forward, searching desperately for loved ones among the wounded and dreading their absence, which might indicate a fate worse than injury. Lydia scans the crowd with increasing panic until her shoulders suddenly sag with relief. Her brother Theon appears, limping heavily with a bandaged thigh but alive. The family surrounds him immediately, helping him toward home while he delivers news to anxious neighbours about their own men. This one alive, that one wounded but recovering, another missing and presumed captured or killed. War in ancient Greece isn't a distant event happening to professional soldiers. It's immediate, personal, and communal. Nearly every family has men serving, and news of battles directly affects daily life, creating widows, orphans, and disabled veterans who must be absorbed back into a society with minimal support systems for those who cannot work. As you help carry Theon's few possessions, you listen to his account of the fighting. The brutal reality of ancient warfare emerges through his description. The terror of standing in the phalanx formation as enemy spears thrust toward you. The physical exhaustion of fighting in heavy armor under the Mediterranean sun. The horror of seeing friends cut down beside you. Their right flank broke through, he explains, wincing as his injured leg is jostled, pushed us back to the walls, many drowned trying to reach the ships. Back at Diocles' house, Lydia treats her brother's wound with the limited medical knowledge available, cleaning it with wine, the alcohol providing some antiseptic benefit, applying a poultice of herbs and binding it with clean linen. There are no antibiotics, no professional medical care, except for the wealthy who can afford physicians, and even those doctors operate with severely limited understanding of infection and disease processes. The wound is clean, Lydia pronounces, though modern medical knowledge makes you doubt this assessment. No signs of the rot. She means gangrene, a common and deadly complication of battlefield injuries in the pre-antibiotic era. Theon's return creates a complex mix of emotions in the household. Relief at his survival, concern for his injury, but also anxiety about having another person to feed while he's unable to work. Even in this moment of family reunion, economic reality intrudes. Every mouth requires sustenance and resources are limited. "You'll stay with us until healed," Diocles tells his brother-in-law. It's both generosity and obligation. Family members are expected to support each other in a society without formal safety nets. "I can still work with my hands," Theon insists, clearly concerned about being a burden. "I can paint, help with the firing." The evening meal becomes a small celebration of Theon's return with slightly more generous portions and the addition of a small piece of honeycomb, a rare sweet treat saved for special occasions. As the family eats, Theon shares news from beyond Athens, providing a wider perspective on the war and political situation throughout Greece. The conversation reveals another aspect of ancient life. The limited flow of information. News travels only as fast as the people carrying it, creating significant delays and distortions. What Theon knows of events at Potidaea is already weeks old. What's happening in more distant parts of the Greek world might take months to reach Athens, and the reliability of such information depends entirely on the sources. After the meal, neighbours visit to welcome Theon home and inquire about their own relatives in the campaign. The social bonds of the neighbourhood become visible, the interconnected web of relationships that provides mutual support in times of hardship. These connections aren't just pleasant social ties, but essential survival mechanisms in a world where formal institutions provide minimal assistance. An older man named Cleon, known for his knowledge of healing, examines Theon's wound and suggests additional treatments, a different herb mixture and a specific positioning of the leg during sleep. This informal medical consultation represents another aspect of community support, with knowledge shared freely among neighbours as a matter of survival. "The wound is deep but clean," Cleon confirms. "Keep it dry, change the dressing daily, watch for red streaks moving up the leg, that's when you worry." The practical, matter-of-fact approach to injury and illness reflects a society intimately familiar with physical suffering. Pain and disability are not exceptional states but common conditions to be managed with the limited tools available. There's no expectation of complete healing or return to full function, just hope for enough recovery to resume some form of productive work. As evening deepens into night, the household prepares for sleep. The day's disruption has altered the normal routine, but certain patterns remain constant. Oil lamps are extinguished to conserve precious fuel, bedding is arranged in the shared living space, and small final offerings are made at the household shrine. You find yourself positioned near Theon, who seems grateful for company during what will likely be a painful night. The wounded soldier studies you with curiosity. Diocles says you appeared from nowhere, he remarks quietly, speaking strangely, knowing nothing of Athens. You offer a vague explanation about coming from a distant region and suffering an injury that affected your memory, a story that seems to satisfy most questions without revealing your impossible true origins. War makes strangers of us all, Theon replies philosophically. Who I was before Potidaea seems like another person now. This sentiment, the transformative effect of trauma and hardship on identity, transcends historical periods. The psychological impact of warfare, though not described in modern clinical terms, is clearly recognized and understood through cultural frameworks available to ancient Greeks. As conversation around you dies down and the household settles into sleep, your mind remains active, processing the day's experiences. The social world of ancient Athens has become more legible to you. Its hierarchies and divisions, its networks of obligation and support, its methods of coping with hardship and uncertainty. You've witnessed how war shapes daily life, how family bonds provide essential security, how social connections determine access to resources and opportunities. You've seen the physical toll of ancient living conditions on human bodies and the psychological strategies people develop to endure constant hardship. Most strikingly, you've recognized that survival in ancient Greece isn't primarily an individual achievement, but a collective process. The ancient Athenians endure through interconnection, the household, the neighborhood, the community of citizens, the shared religious practices that bind them together, despite internal divisions. As sleep finally approaches, you wonder about your place in this intricate social web. You've begun to form connections with Diocles' family, with neighbors like Nicias, with returned soldiers like Theon. These relationships, tenuous as they are, represent your best hope for survival in a world where isolation is tantamount to death. The night deepens around the sleeping household. Outside, Athens continues its restless existence, watchmen making rounds, symposia in wealthy homes stretching into late hours, the occasional shout or burst of laughter from revelers. The city never truly sleeps, its rhythms continuing through darkness just as they have for centuries before and will for centuries after your brief visit to this ancient world. You wake suddenly in the pre-dawn darkness, momentarily disoriented until the now familiar smells of the potter's house bring you back to your ancient reality. Something's wrong. The household stirs with unusual activity for this hour. Hushed voices, hurried movements, a sound of water being poured. "Fever's worse," comes Lydia's tense voice. "He's burning up." It's Theon. Overnight, his wound has taken a dangerous turn. Despite the wine cleaning and herbal poultices, infection has set in, an almost inevitable outcome in a world without antibiotics or proper understanding of germ theory. You rise from your sleeping pallet, joining the family gathered around Theon. His face is flushed, his breathing rapid and shallow. The bandage on his thigh shows seepage, yellow-green discharge that indicates infection. Modern medical knowledge tells you exactly what's happening. Bacteria are multiplying in the wound, entering the bloodstream, triggering the body's inflammatory response. Without intervention, sepsis will follow, then organ failure, then death. But here, in 430 BCE, no one understands these processes. They see only the external symptoms interpreted through frameworks of humoral imbalance or divine displeasure. The wound festers, Diocles says grimly. Cleon must be called. Melina is sent to fetch the neighborhood healer, running through streets still dark and dangerous before dawn. You offer to help and are tasked with bringing fresh water, which you fetch from the household cistern, a stone-lined reservoir that collects rainwater from the roof. The water looks relatively clean compared to public sources, a small advantage of living in a craftsman's home rather than the poorest dwellings. When Cleon arrives, sleep-tousled but alert, he examines Theon with practiced efficiency. His methods reflect the best medical knowledge available in ancient Greece: observation of symptoms, checking pulse and respiration, examining bodily secretions. He unwraps the bandage, revealing the angry red inflammation around the wound, the purulent discharge, the streaking redness extending up the thigh that indicates spreading infection. Blood and bile fight within him, Cleon pronounces, his explanation reflecting Hippocratic theory of the four humours: the balance must be restored. His treatment plan makes you inwardly cringe with modern medical knowledge. First, bloodletting, opening a vein to drain some of Theon's blood, allegedly to reduce the excess causing fever. This practice, far from helping, will further weaken an already compromised patient. Next, purgatives, to induce vomiting and diarrhea, theoretically to expel bad humours, but actually causing additional dehydration and electrolyte imbalance. Finally, a poultice of bread mould and honey for the wound itself. Ironically, this last treatment might actually help somewhat. Certain moulds contain compounds similar to antibiotics, and honey has legitimate antimicrobial properties, but these beneficial effects are counteracted by the harmful bloodletting and purgatives. Medicine in ancient Greece represents a dangerous mixture of occasional insight and fundamental misunderstanding. As Cleon works, he explains his reasoning, providing a window into ancient medical thinking. The four humours, blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile, must exist in proper balance for health. Illness occurs when they're out of proportion, with different symptoms indicating different imbalances. Fever suggests excess blood or yellow bile, hence the bloodletting to reduce this excess. You assist as requested, handing materials and helping hold Theon still during painful procedures. The wounded soldier bears treatment stoically, though his face contorts with pain when the wound is cleaned. He's conscious but confused